maybe it's my algorithm, but I see Shiloh and Shedeur more than I've ever seen any undrafted guy or fifth-round guy on social media in the history of Instagram, Threads, Twitter, X, whatever it is. Like, those dudes are everywhere. And they caught some of Deion's strays, right? Deion had a level of greatness that was untouchable, right? Deion could say, yeah, I'm not interviewing with these people because I'm not gonna be there in the draft. Deion could say, hey, I already ran 140. I ain't effing with no more of this testing because y'all already know I'm top 5 and it ain't tripping. Watch the film, know who I am. That's the difference between, I think, Deion and who his kids were. And then I think Deion's approach to it made other people, Deion's fame, right? Deion's success, Deion's ability to one day be a head coach in the league. Also, Deion's ability and what he's done in navigating the present, right? When we talk about college of his children and now going into the pros, this is the first thing he...
Let's rewind the clock. Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, was a legend who always walked to the beat of his own drum. When he played, he didn't just follow the system, he was the system. Deion could say, I'm not running the 40-yard dash again, and nobody blinked. He was that elite. The league had to respect him. Deion told teams, don't draft me unless you're serious, and they listened. That's the power he commanded. Now fast forward, his sons, Shedeur and Shiloh, are stepping into the spotlight. But here's where it gets twisted. That same confidence, that same unapologetic dominance that made Deion an icon, it painted a massive target on his back. And by extension, it painted one on Shedeur and Shiloh too. See, what people don't talk about enough is that Deion's fame didn't just elevate him, it threatened others. Some people inside the NFL, inside the system, saw Coach Prime building something unique, a black coach with swagger, building a program at Jackson State, bringing eyes to HBCUs, and then heading to Colorado? That shook up the establishment, and they didn't like it. Ryan Clark explained it best. This was a hit job. Not on Shedeur directly, but on Coach Prime. Shedeur was just collateral damage, a pawn in a much bigger chess game. His draft evaluation, suddenly it wasn't about his play on the field. It became all about whispers, rumors, and narratives, personality issues, character concerns, questions about his professionalism. They said he wore headphones in meetings. They said he wasn't taking things seriously. But where was the proof? None of this was verifiable. And that's the point. Clark said it clearly. When you can't attack the tape, you attack the character. That's the strategy. When the stats and the highlights don't support the slander, you go after the person. You manufacture doubt. You plant seeds and let them grow. And this wasn't subtle. It was coordinated. A whisper campaign that turned into full-blown analysis across sports networks, NFL insiders, podcasts. And for what? To make Shedeur fall in the draft? Or to get at the one man who had always been untouchable, Deion Sanders? For the first time in his legendary career, Coach Prime couldn't control the situation. The NFL draft process exposed him to the one thing he couldn't protect, his own son, and that's where the pain came in. You could see it, you could feel it. That's what Ryan Clark was talking about when he said, it did hurt. This wasn't about football, it was about vendettas, and it was personal. Let's dig deeper into what Ryan Clark revealed, because it's not just shocking, it's strategic. It's a blueprint for character assassination in professional sports. Shedeur Sanders didn't just step into the NFL draft process as a young, talented quarterback. He walked into an ambush, one disguised as a fair evaluation. On paper, Shedeur had every reason to be considered a top-tier prospect. He played under 6 different offensive coordinators in college, a nightmare scenario for any quarterback, but every single time he adapted and elevated his game. At Jackson State, he put up numbers behind a shaky offensive line, then he made the leap to Power 5 football with Colorado and didn't miss a beat. He produced, he delivered, he showed leadership and poise. But none of that mattered when the NFL media machine started grinding. The buzz wasn't about his arm strength, pocket awareness, or football IQ. Suddenly, the spotlight shifted to off-field issues, most of them unsubstantiated. You heard things like, he's got a big ego, he's uncoachable, he's not mentally ready, he wore headphones during interviews. Really? That's the best they could come up with. Ryan Clark saw right through it. Every rumor was crafted in a way that made it impossible to verify, but just damaging enough to raise suspicion. And that's the trick. That's how narratives get weaponized. Because when something might be true, teams feel like they have to take it seriously, even if there's no hard evidence, even if it's just gossip. This wasn't evaluation, this was manipulation, and the target wasn't really Shedeur, it was Deion. Coach Prime had been shaking up the football world for years, and this was the league's chance to push back. He'd taken control of the college narrative. He'd built his own brand stronger than many NFL coaches. Now, some insiders feared what would happen if he got a foothold in the NFL as a coach. The shot they couldn't take directly at him, they took at his kid. Imagine being Deion Sanders, one of the most dominant, charismatic, and successful players the sport has ever seen, and watching your son get dragged through the mud, not because of anything he did, but because of who you are. Imagine the guilt, the helplessness, and here's where the betrayal deepens. It wasn't just faceless scouts or anonymous sources doing the damage. It came from his own era, people he once shared the field with. Ryan Clark pointed to Chris Carter as someone who added fuel to the fire, a former peer. Someone who knew how hard it was to succeed in this game, now casting doubt on the son of a former teammate, that cut deep. Meanwhile, others from Deion's era, like Michael Irvin and Keyshawn Johnson, came to Shedeur's defense. They saw through the smoke and mirrors and spoke up. They weren't threatened by Coach Prime, they embraced his rise, but the difference is, they didn't have anything to lose from Deion's success. Some others? They did, and they acted accordingly. The narrative machine didn't just try to damage Shedeur's draft stock, it tried to erase his value. But what they forgot is that this kid isn't built to fold. He was raised in fire by a man who never ran from heat. And just like Deion once told NFL teams what he wasn't going to do, Shedeur is about to show the league what they should have done, believed in him. Because despite all the backroom slander, all the subtle digs, and all the character questions, he still got drafted. He still made it to the NFL. And now, he's got receipts. So now we arrive at the emotional core of this entire saga, Deion's pain. Because when Ryan Clark said it did hurt, he wasn't just quoting Coach Prime. He was opening a window into the heart of a father who for the first time in his life couldn't protect his son. Deion Sanders spent his entire career controlling the narrative. He played the game on his own terms and he won over and over again. From his NFL dominance to his transition into coaching, he dictated the pace, the spotlight, and the headlines. But this draft process, this was different. This was the first battlefield he couldn't command. This was the one war where his swagger, his confidence, his resume couldn't shield his son from a coordinated attack. And that's what made it personal. In interviews, you could hear it. In his voice. In his pauses. In the way he said, "I can't see that. I can't see the next level." He wasn't just hurt because of Shedeur's draft slide. He was hurt because he knew it wasn't about his son. It was about him. And worse, he couldn't stop it. Deion admitted it plainly. A couple people who may have taken shots at my kids, they were afraid that I would go. That right there is the real story. NFL insiders weren't just questioning whether Shedeur could lead a team. They were afraid Deion might one day coach one. And so the attack began early. Not on the father, but on the son. Now pause and think about that. How twisted does the league have to be to weaponize a man's child against him, just to preserve their status quo? That's not scouting. That's not football. That's politics. That's fear in a suit. And here's the irony. They failed, because what they did instead of breaking Shedeur was forge him. Every negative tweet, every hot take, every whisper about his character, it became motivation. This isn't a quarterback who's just trying to make it. This is a quarterback on a mission, one who saw his family targeted, one who knows the game isn't just about X's and O's anymore, it's about power. That's why Shedeur isn't acting like your average rookie. He's walking into training camp with a chip bigger than any first-round pick. He knows what was said, he knows who said it, and most importantly, he knows it wasn't true. Ryan Clark put it best. They went after the one thing Deion couldn't protect. But in doing so, they made a mistake, because they underestimated Shedeur. They thought the attack would diminish him. Instead, it sharpened him. And let's be real, Shedeur Sanders isn't just some developmental project. This is a quarterback with elite footwork, fast processing, and underrated arm talent. Clark even said it. They overblew the things you might question based on who his father was. The name Sanders didn't help him. It hurt him. The evaluation wasn't neutral. It was distorted. And yet Shedeur still made it. Now he's in Cleveland, and the quarterback room is wide open. Joe Flacco isn't the future. Kenny Pickett hasn't locked anything down. Dylan Gabriel is a name in the mix. But make no mistake, Shedeur is here to compete. And if the draft process didn't break him, no depth chart is going to either. And while all eyes are on how he performs, remember this, his play is about more than football. Every completed pass, every third down conversion, every win, it's all part of a story much bigger than the game. It's a story of redemption, of legacy, of proving that you can't erase greatness just because you're afraid of what it might grow into. So here we are, the moment of truth. After everything that's been said, done, and whispered in the shadows, Shedeur Sanders stands on the edge of something massive. Not just an NFL career, but a legacy built not on favoritism, but on fire. And if you're still wondering whether the hate campaign backfired, just open your phone. Ryan Clark made the point perfectly.
Maybe it's my algorithm, but I see Shiloh and Shedeur more than I've ever seen any undrafted guy or fifth-round guy on.
He's not wrong. Social media is saturated with Sanders content. Interviews, highlights, workouts, reactions. These two aren't just part of the conversation. They are the conversation, and that's the irony of it all. The NFL thought it could bury Shedeur under a mountain of criticism, but instead it elevated him into one of the most talked about rookies of the year. This isn't just visibility, it's cultural relevance. The same system that tried to minimize him ended up amplifying his story. He became the story. Think about it. Shedeur Sanders has more online traction than some first-round QBs. He's got a bigger presence, a louder following, and a stronger emotional narrative than players picked way ahead of him. Why? Because people resonate with revenge. They relate to being overlooked. They understand what it's like to be doubted because of your last name or because of your father's shadow. But here's the part that separates Shedeur from the rest. He's not bitter, he's focused. Every day at Browns camp, he's clocking in early, putting in reps when nobody's watching, talking less, working more. Coaches have already noticed his leadership. Teammates have already commented on how sharp he is in the film room. There's no diva behavior, no excuses, just accountability and ambition. That's the legacy Coach Prime passed down. Not just flash, but substance. Not just style, but structure. Shedeur inherited the bravado, sure, but he also inherited the discipline. That's what makes him dangerous. And let's talk about the quarterback competition in Cleveland. Joe Flacco is a veteran, but he's not the long-term solution. Kenny Pickett, still trying to prove consistency. Dylan Gabriel, talented but raw. You insert a hungry, battle-tested, media-forged Shedeur Sanders into that mix, and suddenly the most motivated guy in the room is also the most dangerous. Because this isn't just a training camp battle, it's a proving ground. And every single snap is another chance for Shedeur to make them pay. Let me ask you this. What happens if he wins the job? What happens if the kid they said was unprepared walks onto the field and starts slicing up defenses like he's been doing it his whole life? What happens when the whispers go silent? When the scouts go quiet? When the critics start rewriting their takes in real time? That's not just redemption, that's justice. And for Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, this might be the greatest chapter of his story yet. Because this isn't just about football anymore. It's about fatherhood. It's about protecting your children in a world that tried to punish them for your success. It's about watching your son take the hits that were meant for you and still stand tall. In that moment, when Shedeur starts bawling out on Sundays, this whole twisted plan to undermine him will collapse under the weight of his performance. The lies? Exposed. The narratives? Destroyed. The character concerns? Replaced by game tape that screams leadership, skill, and poise. Ryan Clark said it best. Shedeur wasn't the problem, he was the target. But the NFL forgot one thing. Some kids are built to bend, but not break. Some kids, when you try to ruin them, come back sharper, smarter, and stronger. Shedeur is one of those kids. So what happens next? We watch, we wait. And if you've followed this journey from the beginning, you know this isn't the end. It's just the start of the revenge arc. Because this story isn't about a fifth-round pick trying to make a roster. It's about a dynasty, proving that you can't cancel greatness. Shedeur Sanders is coming, not just to compete, but to conquer. And I don't know about you, but I'm here for every second of it. What do you think? Was this really a coordinated attack on Coach Prime through his son, or was it just the NFL doing business as usual? And more importantly, do you think Shedeur is about to shock the entire league in Cleveland? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you want to stay in the loop as this revenge story unfolds in real time, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because trust me, you do not want to miss what's next.